So don't look at my false tax returns, but look at my false financial disclosures. Her income goes from a maximum of $90,000 to a maximum of $1 million, but her asset value goes from $30 million down to zero. I'd like to know who's cooking her books.
Ilhan Omar and Letitia James, two names, two scandals, two people that should be in some serious legal trouble, but somehow both of them are still standing. And if you've been on this channel for a while, you already know, but let's get back into it.
She bought a house in Virginia. She claimed it was a second home, but she was taking at the same time rental income deductions, rental expense deductions on the house. Now, you can't claim to the bank that it's a second home while claiming to the IRS it's a rental property that you don't even live in. So that was problem number one with her income taxes. Problem number, that's why she doesn't want to release it.
Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, none of this is new to you. We've been covering Letitia James' story from the jump. We've been on the beat, and it's still important to kind of come back to this because a lot of people still don't understand how she's still not in trouble, to be honest. But there's a lot going on, so let's be clear about what's happening here because the media has done everything in their power to muddy this and make this more about a political back and forth between her and Trump instead of diving into exactly what she has been accused of doing. Tish James walks into a bank, tells them that this Virginia property is going to be her second home. That gets her a better interest rate, gets the favorable loan terms, saves herself roughly $19,000 over the life of this loan, according to the federal prosecutors. That's a lot of money. Then she rents it out. Now, her people said that she bought it for her great niece, that her great niece lived there rent free. Fine. Here's the problem. Her own attorney told the DOJ in writing, and I quote, that James was a non-occupying co-borrower with no intent to occupy the property. I'll say it again. That James was a non-occupying co-borrower with no intent to occupy the property. So which is it? Either you told the bank that you lived there and you lied, that's mortgage fraud, or you never intend to live there and your disclosures are wrong, and that's a disclosure violation. Both of those things can be true at the same time. And for a woman whose entire brand was built on saying nobody's above the law, that is a real receipt.
Our financial disclosures from 2020 to 2024 have been all false. They don't include the home that she was indicted for in Virginia or the mortgage. They include mortgages that that don't appear in the property records. So her financial disclosures are false too. So don't look at my false tax returns, but look at my false financial disclosures.
This is where it gets legitimately wild, and I want you to sit with this for a second because this is not speculation. This is a title search territory. This is public record. Her 2023 disclosure lists two mortgages on that Norfolk property, Freedom Mortgage and National Mortgage, up to $400,000 in debt listed against a property she valued at no more than $150,000. Loan to value ratio of over 250%. But here's the kicker. Neither of those mortgages show up in the property records. They do not exist. Meanwhile, the one mortgage that is documented, the $109,000 OVM financial loan she actually used to buy the place, never appears in any of her disclosures from 2020 through 2024. She reported phantom mortgages and hid the real one. That is not some kind of clerical error. This isn't staff making a mistake. She signed those disclosures under a penalty of perjury. She is New York's chief law enforcement officer. These timelines don't make sense. And this information has been out there for the longest, and nothing has happened.
The accountant himself wrote a letter saying that the assets were valued at about $30 million, give or take, right? Okay? When you say an asset is valued, that means net of liabilities. It doesn't mean it's the gross amount, it's the net of liabilities amount.
Well, let's talk about Ilhan Omar for a second. And if you've been here, you already know we've been tracking Omar's financials for quite some time. Talking about her husband with the Rose Lake Capital, with her with the Feeding Our Future connections, the disclosure questions. We covered all of it.
Hi, Congresswoman Omar. You were just talking about how Trump's economy has failed the American people, but I think the American people really want to know how you went from a negative $65,000 before coming into Congress to over $30 million in just 7 years.
My disclosure is public now.
Yeah, it is. And so a lot of people now are looking into that and finding S. Crew Winery, a winery that doesn't actually seem to exist. Is that a real winery, or?
Do you all actually look at and read things, or do you just ask silly questions?
Well, it's listed in the financial disclosure, so can you explain it? Because we have a lot of questions about it, and things just aren't adding up. There's no real phone number. There's no real location.
Why did you want to buy some wine?
Probably not from you, to be honest. Recently stated that the American people should be afraid of the white man. They should be fearful of the white man.
I never said that.
Yeah, you're on video saying it.
Our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. No, I did not.
Yes, you.
Again, this is like what I said. You need to prepare yourself because you can't continue embarrassing yourself like this.
So I'm just a liar.
What I was quoting was an actual study done by the FBI.
Okay, thank you.
Just prepare next time.
All right, thank you, Congresswoman.
This is where the forensic accountant is doing real work, and I want you to pay attention because this is exactly the thing that sounds technical, but it tells the whole story. So the explanation from Omar's cabinet, we did a video on this, that the accountant made a mistake. The accountant forgot to subtract the liabilities, so it looked like $30 million in assets was actually, I guess if you check the notes here, $18,000 to $95,000. Now, Rose Lake Capital, her husband's Tim Minette's venture capital firm, was valued at $51,000 back in 2023. By 2024, it's showing up to $5 to $25 million. The winery goes under $50,000 to $5 million. And then, with one amended filing, both went back to zero. But here's what doesn't go back to zero: the income from both of those businesses back in 2024. The same amended disclosure that wipes out $30 million in assets still shows $102,000 to just over $1 million in income from the same businesses in 2024, including $213,000 in documented cash contributions from Rose Lake Capital. $0 assets that pays out six figures in cash. Somebody explain it to me in the comments. Explain how that makes sense. I'm not an accountant. You tell me what's up.
I'd like to know who's cooking her books.
But these are the people that are making financial decisions for the nation.
Good point.
Well, I should say Omar is.
Yeah.
Her
Look at her
attorney.
state.
Her attorney did offer an explanation for the revised disclosure forms. It's a letter, and her attorney wrote that, quote, as the busiest of people, it is very common for members and their spouses to rely on learned professionals like accountants to make calculations and determinations that appear on public findings.
This is her actual defense. This is what her attorney put in a letter to a congressional ethics watchdog. I need you to understand what is being said here. Sitting member of Congress who signs her financial disclosure under the penalty of the law is telling a federal oversight body, I was too busy to check my own paperwork. Now, the Washington Free Beacon first reported the $30 million disclosure back in September of 2025. That is 7 months before the amendment. If this was just a accountant error, a decimal point that was in the wrong place, you can call that accountant that afternoon. You get it corrected in probably 48 hours. But that's not how this played out. It took a formal inquiry from the Office of Congressional Conduct, pressure from the House Oversight Committee, and a referral to the House Ethics Committee before this whole thing got corrected. And the correction conveniently landed right as the political heat was turning up. So the receipts were always there. The accountability clock just started. Whether it actually runs out, that's the question here.
Do you think anything's going to happen legally to either of these two? And I know Letitia James, and then they had a technicality with Lindsay Halligan, the prosecutor. That it wasn't the right
current
appointment.
DOJ with Todd Blanche in there is a mess. Okay, he's been screwing up the entire DOJ. He screwed up the.
You're saying Todd Blanche is screwing up
Wow,
the
because we heard that
DOJ.
about the previous one.
Okay, New York State wanted to bring. The prosecutor in New York State wanted to bring a tax case against Letitia James. Todd Blanche quashed it. Todd Blanche did not give Lindsay Halligan the support she needed. He put in his own guy in Virginia who had no experience trying criminal cases.
Okay.
Well, that's our government for you this morning.
And here's where we land on the accountability question, because this is the part that should make everyone angry, regardless of your politics. With Tish James, the DOJ indicted her in October 2025. The case got dismissed in November because the U.S. attorney who brought it, Lindsay Halligan, was ruled unlawfully appointed. They went back 2 separate grand juries in December. Both refused to indict her. Now, the clip says Todd Blanche killed a New York State tax case against James. I can't verify that claim. If you have the information, information, let me know. You email it to me, h@hannibalishungry.com. I'll keep looking. But I did not see that as confirmed. What is documented is the prosecution was a mess from the jump. Career prosecutors said that the evidence was inefficient before they got fired, and the whole thing collapsed on procedural grounds. With Omar, there is an active ethics committee referral. No criminal charges, no DOJ communications according to her office. So both women are still standing. And that's the real story. The facts are documented. There is receipts there, and yet the political shield has been held for both of them. So here's the thing about accountability in this country. Obviously, it's not equally applied. It never has been. You've been watching both Letitia James and Ilhan Omar, both very powerful people. You see something very detailed there. You notice when you are politically connected, when the prosecution itself becomes a political football, the facts don't matter anymore, because now the conversation isn't about phantom mortgages or $30 billion accounting errors. It's about Trump. It's about political persecution. It's about who brought the charges and why. And that pivot, that is the move every single time. If I had to pick between the two, which one would actually face some kind of accountability? Ilhan Omar, because it seemed like her situation with Minnesota, where Keith Ellison and Tim Walz, and how there was so much money being stolen. Maybe there's some connection there, and clearly someone is lying. But Tess James being in New York's top cop, I just don't see it. I'll be surprised. But let me know in the comments below if you disagree with me on that one. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.